Good evening, everybody. As it is now 1 minute past 6 p.m. on Tuesday, January 11th, 2022, I hereby call to order this meeting of the Westboro Select Board, the agenda for which has been properly posted in the town by the town clerk and has hopefully been scrolling on the screen of Westboro TV prior to this meeting. A couple of notes on the agenda for those who might have printed or be viewing a copy. We've got two items that we will be skipping this evening. One is item 8 on the agenda, the donation of AED machines to the police department. There will be a public presentation of that at some point in the future, and we will not be going into executive session this evening. This meeting is being held pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. This meeting will be conducted by remote means. Members of the public who wish to access the meeting may do so in the following manner. The Zoom link as published with the agenda and on the town website. And they may view the live broadcast on Verizon Channel 28 and or Charter Channel 192 or via Westboro TV's online platforms at westborotv.org and youtube.com/westborotv. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, for reasons of hardship and despite best efforts, we will post on the town of Westboro's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. With that, the first item on our agenda this evening is, after convening the meeting, is open forum. I don't believe we've been contacted by anyone to speak at open forum this evening. So we will move directly into the town manager's report. So I turn the floor over, or the screen over, to Christie.
Thanks. So in town manager updates, the sliver parcel, or the parcel off Oak Street behind the DPW, it's about 1/3 of an acre, has been fully transferred to the town from DCAM. And that was completed in December. So we met the deadline that was established by the legislation. So that was many months of work. So that's exciting. The Harvey building, as the board knows, we had a license with the Westboro Players Club, and then also the Westboro Community Chorus to use the Harvey building. That license expired this week. It was a 10-year license. In working with Select Board Member Keogh, we finalized a successor license for use of the Harvey building with Westboro Community Chorus. And then we've also entered into an agreement, or we've finalized that agreement with Troop 100, who's also been using the building space since they were displaced from the community building. And this license is a 2-year agreement with clauses in it that allows for either us as the licensor or the licensees to terminate if needed. In the annual town meeting warrant, I did send that to you, and that'll be posted along with the town manager report, and I'll also send it out to all the folks that we typically send it to. One thing I just want to call your attention to, we have 17 articles on there at this point. And then I also included for the first time a placeholder section at the end of the warrant. These are warrant articles that I'm aware of are out there and being discussed that haven't been fully formulated, or that there hasn't been sort of a final decision about whether or not they'll be on the warrant, but just wanted to keep them on everyone's top of mind so that they don't seem like they're coming kind of out of nowhere when they end up on the warrant. The budget summit is proposed to be on January 27th. I sent a draft agenda to Alan and also Mike Reddy, just confirming that was going to work for everyone. It's proposed to start at 8:30 in the morning and go till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. 2 years ago when we did that, it was fully in person. That was pre-COVID. Last year we did that fully remote, and so we'll just have to have a discussion about how we want to move forward with that. And then the board schedule, Sela did send out the board schedule. I just wanted to note, because we do post this on the website, that there are some dates that we might want to consider, maybe review at the next meeting. There's some that are falling on vacation in the summer. We typically change the schedule. Do we want to look at that now? And then some that fall around the holidays at the end of the calendar year. And then the committee handbook did go out to all department heads and board and committee chairs last week with a cover letter, calling people's attention to different parts of the committee handbook, and then also telling people to contact our office with questions. So we did receive one question so far regarding the requirement that the chair not serve more than 2 consecutive years. And so there are boards and committees who have experienced that one individual serves multiple years in a row. And so that might be something that we need to revisit or at least discuss at a future meeting. In department updates, community development, draft land management, or in the conservation department, a draft land management plan for both Swicker and Daypray have been received, and they'll be implemented after they're discussed by the commission, hopefully in February. The online permitting process has been upgraded to include certificates of compliance in conservation. The director recently approved by EnviroCert as a student, so she'll be working on getting a certified professional license in erosion and sediment control. The department is working with the developer of Harvest Way to build some trails on the open space parcels associated with the property. It'll be conveyed to the Conservation Commission. One thing we really wanted to call everyone's attention to is the nutrient study for Lake Chauncey is being conducted. That was approved by town meeting vote at the annual town meeting on May 15th, 2021. In order for them to complete this study, that means that we will not be treating the lake this upcoming year because they need to look at the lake in its natural state. In talking to Jen Kirkland, they do plan to open the beach, and they'll just monitor it as they had prior to it being treated. The Zoning Board of Appeals has approved a special permit to allow 30 East Main Street to be renovated back to a three-family. Potential buyers to bring structure back to the original condition. And the building department has a building permit in for a Jersey Mike's sub shop at 1 Oak Street, which has been received. Department of Public Works, they welcome Jeff Moore to the tree division. They're actively working to seek applicants for the position in sewer division. Over the past year, we've seen a significant transition as a third of the department staff changed over, and they're looking forward to the year ahead. The students and faculty away during the winter break, the DPW tree division led by Kyle Grendel completed necessary line of sight improvements and hazardous tree removal near Hastings, Fales, Mill Pond, Gibbons, and Armstrong. And then they wanted to thank TJ Vudis and the entire cemetery division for their tremendous work over the past year. It was one of their busiest years, and based on customer feedback, they continue to provide professional and timely service. And then a department-wide cleanup and purge of hazardous chemicals such as paints and lubricants is now complete. Safety data sheets will be updated over the coming weeks. You also may have seen, this isn't in their report, but you also may have seen on their social media that the department participated in a Maya, which is our insurance company, training today. They did a driver simulator training. And then in the police department, they've received the 7 AEDs plus units from the company 610. And so as Alan said at the beginning of the meeting, they'll be before us at a future meeting where we can thank them for that donation. That's it.
Great, thank you very much. So moving on, next on the agenda is to appoint a custodian for 231 Turnpike Road. Christie.
Yep, so the town has completed the foreclosure of the Regal Cinema. And so we like you recently did with Baylor Ave, we need to appoint a custodian. I know that this is not as simple, this isn't as simple as other tax title foreclosures. I'm sure that there'll be lots of discussions about how we move forward with that property. And we will likely need a town meeting vote depending on how the board wants to move forward. So this is just the very first step in that discussion where we need to appoint a custodian. We typically appoint the treasurer collector, which is my recommendation at this time. But again, in terms of the future use of the property and how the board wishes to move forward in terms of disposition, that will certainly be on future board agendas.
I would to appoint the treasurer collector as the custodian of 231 Turnpike Road.
I will second that.
So moved and seconded. Any questions or comments?
Over the top excited.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
It took
This
a
has been
while,
a-
but it's great. It's awesome. Awesome news.
Yep, went through a very long process. I know for folks that are following this, and it's just exciting to be at this point.
Many years and many time zones.
Yes.
Okay. We'll move to a vote because we're remote. It's a roll call vote. So Patrick,
Welch, yes.
Ian,
Johnson, yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Shelby,
Yes,
and Edinburgh, yes. So the motion passes 5-0, 5 being present. Thank you very much, Christie, and to town council and all of the other departments that, remind people that it's just not the administrative side of things, that the DPW and the fire department, the police department have been involved in this in various aspects of protecting that property and helping us get to this point. So it's very much appreciated. Okay, so next on the agenda is a renewal of the lease addendum for 121 West Main Street, Civic Kitchen and Drink. Christie.
So as you all remember, earlier or last year, you approved an addendum to Civic's lease that allowed them to serve alcohol on the golf course property. So once this helped us continue to serve alcohol at the course, because once the town took ownership as opposed to a contracted golf course manager, we weren't allowed to issue ourselves a liquor license. And so one way around that was to allow Civic to serve alcohol on the course. As you know, that process can take some time. So with ABC needing ABCC approval. And so we certainly don't feel that the full potential of this agreement was recognized during the 2021 golf season. I did speak with, or Kim actually spoke with the recreation director, as well as Tom Oliveri, who is the owner of Civic Kitchen, and they're interested in moving this forward. Ian is also your representative on the Recreation Commission, which oversees this, and so he can certainly speak to that. But the recommendation at this time would be to approve addendum number 2. Addendum number 2 is needed because addendum number 1 only allowed for service on the golf course property through the end of 2021. And this would allow service through the end of 2022. And then the full lease expires March 1st, 2023. So, we can, at the end of 2022, we can figure out how we want to move forward at that time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, or is there a motion?
I will move to approve addendum number 2 and further authorize the town manager to execute the addendum.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions about the addendum or the process? Okay, great. Seeing or hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote. Ian,
Johnson, yes.
Patrick,
Welch, yes.
Shelby,
Marshall, yes.
and Sean.
Keo, yes.
And Edinburgh, yes. The motion passes 5-0, 5 being present. So next on the agenda is an easement for the V-Walt trail. And again, I hand this off to Town Manager Christie Williams.
So just so you all know, I did send you a motion just now that was drafted by Town Council. Really, it was just references the proper town meeting vote because you had to be authorized by town meeting to accept the easement. It also does have a caveat at the end of it that makes it subject to the insurance requirements being satisfactory to the town manager, and that's just because we're still continuing to talk to our insurance company. And so that would be the motion. That would be the motion I would request at this time. This is all part of that Mass Works project that we talked about many times, and Jim Robbins is leading that project, so he's on the call, and I'll let him take the lead.
Are there any questions for Jim?
If you can, Jim, can you just give a brief update? I know there's a bunch of emails going back and forth. If you can just update, I think I understand it, but it'd be helpful if you don't mind just giving us an overview from your side.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much. It's through the chairman to address the board. I don't know if you need to see the easements. I can share my screen. If you need, I can show you Articles 14 and 15 from May Town Meeting 2001. In brief, we have two easements here. One is to accept a small piece of property on Flanders Road that allows the mechanical box for the new signal that will be constructed at the intersection of the new West Park Drive extension at Flanders Road. The larger easement is for the V-Walt multi-purpose bike and pedestrian trail adjacent to the West Park Drive extension. That easement also includes a construction temporary easement. So you have a permanent easement for the bike trail itself, and you have a temporary easement for construction activities while they're building the trail and its associated drainage. Those easements are necessary for the MassWorks grant to be bid. We're at the 100% design level right now, which means 100% of the engineering has been completed. The engineering department has those plans and is working with the project engineer to complete the few things that are left. We anticipate having bid documents ready for a February bid process with the anticipation to begin construction late April. Hopefully we would be done by the end of September or October. And this easement is essential because it's included in the bid documents. Any contractor needs to be able to see where they're working.
Okay, thank you. Patrick, you have a question?
Yeah. Hey, Jim, thanks for being on the call tonight and presenting this to us. If my memory serves me correct, there was a concern at the planning board at one point in time in regards to kind of the width of the road and kind of the pathway that was going to be created. I believe that's in this easement area. Had those concerns been addressed, and is the planning board all set with kind of the answers on those questions?
The planning board is satisfied that the trail can be constructed within the easement. Now, the easement has restrictions in it that were placed on it by the Conservation Commission because the trail is adjacent to a vegetated wetland, jurisdictional wetland that received review and approval by the Conservation Commission. So the width of the trail itself actually varies. It's the standard width as it comes down off of West Park Drive, and then it narrows as it approaches and goes past the wetland, and then it widens again as it continues down West Park Drive to the intersection with Flanders Road. So yes, there was concern about the width of the easement, but we have to comply with the order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. It doesn't mean that at a later date, if we needed to widen the easement, the applicant, being Carew Capital, could go back at that time to the Conservation Commission. But the easement that we received is adequate to construct the trail for now.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Jim. Any other questions? Shelby?
Yeah, Jim, it would be helpful if you could just pull up those easements and just show us kind of, particularly the trail portion. I'm not as interested where the box goes. I'm sure that that's pretty obvious on the drawing.
Okay, if I can share my screen, I'll do that. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Christie or Seal, do we have to grant him access to share, or?
I have it set up so everyone can share. So, but Jim, if you run into any problems, I can take a peek at it again.
Jim sent it to me so I can pull it up.
So you can't see my screen then?
Not yet.
Okay.
Good job.
All right, that's my screen. So, whoops.
Okay.
Okay, so you're on Article 15. Thank you very much. So Article 15 shows the permanent and the construction easement. This slide that Christie is showing shows the permanent easement for the trail. If you go to the next slide. Okay, now side by side, you have the trail easement and the construction easement. The one on the left is the permanent easement for the trail as it'll exist coming from 2200 West Park Drive, passing through 2300 West Park Drive, and then down to Flanders Road. The one on the right, you see a boulder and a dotted line that seems to be circumferentially surrounding the bike trail. That's the construction easement. So that's the temporary easement. You need to accept both the permanent and the temporary easement. I don't know what your motion says, but your motion should reflect the plan sheet numbers. So I think you have AE1 and AE2.
Okay.
So the motion from town council, Jim, is just pursuant to the vote taken under Article 15 to accept trail easements on properties located. So
that would be fine also because the
Yeah.
town meeting voted those plans.
yeah, that was drafted by town council, that motion.
Yep, that's simpler. Thank you.
So we would be looking for a motion pursuant to the vote taken on under Article 15 of the May 15th, 2021 annual town meeting to accept trail easements on properties located at 118 Flanders Road, 2300 West Park Drive, 2200 West Park Drive, and 134 Flanders Road, subject to the insurance provisions being satisfactory to the town manager.
So moved.
Second. Oops. Sean, you beat me.
Okay, moved and seconded. Are there any final questions or comments? No, I'll just say that this is exciting, that this project's moving forward.
Absolutely.
Okay, and we'll move to a roll call vote. Sean,
Theo, yes.
Shelby,
Marshall, yes.
Ian,
Johnson, yes.
and Patrick.
Welch, yes.
Edinburgh, yes. Motion passes on a vote of 5-0, 5 being present. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Do you need signatures? What's that process? Do we just need to come in and sign?
Yes, but we'll need to figure out the insurance first, so we'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay. So next item on the agenda is to accept and execute the collective bargaining agreement with the dispatchers union. And so I'll turn the floor over to Assistant Town Manager Kim Foster.
Thank you. In your packet, you have a draft of the collective bargaining agreement. This basically pulls all of the items that were previously agreed to with the dispatchers union. As you recall, there were 2 memoranda of agreement that were signed, agreed to and signed by the board. That did happen in executive session, but that is what locks up our agreement with the dispatchers. That is legal and binding. And then we take those items and we put them into the actual collective bargaining agreement. So the document that you saw includes all of those changes that the town and the union have agreed to. It is a 3-year agreement that goes into effect on July 1st of this year. So it covers fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 25. And there's just, I can quickly run through some of the highlights of the agreement. We do have, in terms of sort of the most significant financial components, each year of the agreement includes a 2% cost of living increase. We also did some wage analysis looking at our comp communities, and based on what we saw there, where we, the town, was relative to the market for our dispatcher pay, we made an adjustment in our steps, and we did add a new top step in year 1. We also were able to remove longevity payments. So longevity payments are tied to length of service with the town. And currently those are tied, those are in with the wages. It becomes a new step. We were able to agree to remove that instead of having it be built into wages and base wages. It is a separate
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from members of the board? Okay, then I will entertain the motion. Ian?
I will move to
Either one.
I will move to approve the 3-year agreement between the town of Westboro and the Dispatchers Union, NAGE Local 01-023, covering the period July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025 as presented.
Second that.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments?
I just want to thank,
Go ahead, Shelby.
sorry, I just want to thank everyone, the union, the Kim, your leadership and all those involved for, I think, a really positive negotiation that results in a strong contract for the union and a really strong contract and beneficial contract for the town. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Nothing else to add. That's what I was going to say. So thank you, Shelby.
Okay, I know she.
I just say ditto.
Beating us to it. Okay, so move to a roll call vote. Shelby.
Marshall, yes.
Patrick.
Going to recuse?
Okay, thank you. Sean.
Keo, yes.
Ian Johnson.
Johnson, yes.
And Edmer, yes. So the motion passes on a vote of 4-0-1, with 5 being present. Okay, so next up on the agenda, Christie, is Chief Purcell ready?
The chief is actually caught up with a call right now, so we're hoping to get him a little bit later, so maybe we can take something out of order.
Okay, why don't we, and I see that the members of the Affordable Housing Trust aren't on yet because they weren't planning on being here for another 45 minutes. So, as we're moving forward, I'll text them and let them know. So why don't we jump to item 11, which is the letter of support for Mass General Brigham. Okay, and so what is in the packet, both a red line version, a marked up version, as well as a clean version. is the version of the letter that I was not in attendance at the last meeting, that was discussed at the last meeting. Patrick and I subsequently met to go over the comments in that discussion and make these final edits. The one additional change I would make that's not noted here would be also to send this to the President of the Senate. And to send it to those three individuals, not just our current and future Senate representative for our district.
Makes sense, Alan.
Okay.
Yeah, Alan, just a comment. I thank you to you and to Patrick for going through it. I think it reads well. I think the comments, I'm in agreement with the comments and changes, so I am fully supportive of moving this forward. So with that, I make a motion to authorize the chair to send the proposed letter of support as amended, with the addition of the Senate President being one of the recipients of the letter.
Second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion or commentary?
Just a question, being that it references the House bill, should we copy our representatives on this? Did they receive a copy of it formally?
We can certainly do that.
We typically send a scan of it via email, so we can send to the whole delegation.
Great, thanks.
Okay, if there's nothing further, we'll move to roll call vote. Patrick?
Welch, yes.
Shelby?
Marshall, yes.
Sean?
Keo, yes.
Ian?
Johnson, yes.
And Edinburgh, yes. The motion passes 5-0, 5 being present.
Alan, just real quick to Shelby's point there, I know we're sending that. Does it make sense to just put the kind of CC at the bottom of it? So then the
Yes.
senators know that it's been included to them.
Yeah, we'll put the appropriate CCs on the bottom as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So while Chief Purcell is getting online, let's quickly do the Youth Commission appointment. And so in your packet, there's a letter of interest and the resume of Kate Storm, who's interested in being appointed to the Youth Commission. Ms. Storm was on the commission previously, but stepped away for some time in case her name looks familiar. I will also point out that she's a very active and helpful and productive, engaged member of the Westboro Affordable Housing Trust. There is an opening due to a resignation in October 2021. This current appointment would be to fill the remainder of that open term.
I would move to appoint Kate Storm to the Youth Commission for a term to expire June 30th, 2022.
I'll second that.
Second.
I think Patrick got there first, so thank you. Moved and seconded. Any questions, comments, concerns? Sean?
Yeah, just one comment. Yeah, so yeah, she was a prior member, actually stepped aside so somebody else could be included on the committee, who added additional diversity to the committee. I think she is exactly the kind of person that we want working on the Youth Commission. So full support.
I would absolutely agree. And her work on the trust, she's brought a human perspective amidst all of the work we've had to do with just the legal logistics and procedural logistics of getting the trust up and running, the programs up and running. She always brings in the human side, which has made our emergency rental assistance program more effective. And it's helping, truly guide our work. I definitely think she'll be an asset to the Youth Commission again as well. So on that note, we'll move to roll call vote. Patrick?
Welch, yes.
Ian?
Johnson, yes.
Shelby?
Marshall, yes.
And Sean?
Keo, yes.
Edinburgh, yes. So the motion passes 5-0, 5 being present. Okay, so now we will move back to item 9 on the agenda, the Safer Grant application. And we are joined by Chief Purcell.
Good evening. Chief Patrick Purcell here, bringing a presentation to you regarding the SAFER grant. Before I switch over to my presentation, I just wanted to take a minute to address the board and the community that's listening about why now for the SAFER grant. I validate the tax increase concerns in the community. And I also understand that we had applied for funding through ARPA, but this presented itself to us over the last couple of months differently than the SAFER grant the last time that we applied. If you remember back to 2017, when I came before the board, the federal government's, they mandated a cost share for that grant, where they provided 75% of the funding for the first 2 years, and we provided 25%. And in year 3, we provided 65%, and they provided 35%. Because of COVID-19 and the obvious financial issues in many communities across the nation, they have made an exception for this grant period, where they're willing to fund for 100% of the labor for 3 years, for the next 3 years. So labor-wise, there would be no cost to the taxpayer. And I'm going to go into my presentation now.
While you're doing that, I just wanted to say that I, in the summary that was provided to the board, I had spoken about the SAFER grant as it being an incrementally moving on to the budget similar to the last one. So that was an error. So it's 100%, as Pat just said, 100% each year for 3 years.
Okay, can everyone see my presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I just wanted to back up so there's a clear communication about what it is that the fire department does. So we don't just put out fires, we do your fire suppression. We provide you your emergency medical services. We provide you your public safety communications. And for those listening, what that is the 911 center, where we have your dispatchers who receive 911 calls for police, fire, and EMS, as well as an array of other business calls annually. We provide technical rescue, hazardous materials response, code enforcement and inspectional services, and community risk reduction programs. There are a lot of requirements that are put upon our department, such as emergency management. We're required to have training. We do the administration for emergency medical services, as well as the billing, our own vehicle maintenance. We manage the communication infrastructure for the town, for police, fire, and for DPW, and a little bit for the schools as well. We do asset management within our own organization and IT within our own organization as well. So our current staffing model, since the last SAFER grant was awarded to our community, we still have 4 work groups. There are 10 firefighters assigned to every group. We do run to an 8-person minimum. So what that means is if somebody is out sick or on vacation or on personal leave, we don't backfill for overtime to keep ourselves at 10. We operate with 8 people at minimum. And sometimes that requires mandatory overtime, or what that means is employees being forced over. We have 2 firefighters that are assigned to the Fire Prevention Bureau. We have 1 firefighter that's assigned to days in an administrative and fire prevention or operational role. They can do whatever role we need that day. Then there's myself and the deputy fire chief, and all of our people, with the exception of the dispatchers, are cross-trained to provide fire and EMS. So when you come in on one day, you could be on the fire truck, the next day be on the ambulance, and everybody knows everybody else's job. This is our organizational chart. It's the same as, I know it says 2020 at the top, but this is kind of how it flows. So we have myself and then the deputy chief. We have an administrative assistant, 4 work groups. Every group has a captain and a lieutenant assigned to it. And then there's 8 firefighters below the supervisors on those shifts. We have a dispatch supervisor. We have a we have 9 career public safety dispatchers and about 7 part-time dispatchers. Within fire prevention, we do have a fire inspector who's also a firefighter and an EMT, Ken Milligan, and Chris Knight and Ken Milligan, who's a paramedic. Then there's a small call department that is left here, which is 3 individuals, and they provide support to us when we have a major incident, if they're available. So this is a call volume for the last 11 years, and you hear me talk about this a lot. And you can see in 2010, we were doing about 2,600 calls, and fast forward to 2021, where we did 4,693 emergency responses. Nothing self-generated. These are calls via 911 or business line for like state police for the Mass Turnpike. It's not inspections. It's not community impact programs. It's actual calls for emergency service. And the part that strikes me is we exceeded our call volume last year by a small amount. And that's with the town being really empty of the office parks being empty. And prior to COVID-19, we went there a fair amount. So when people begin to return to work as the pandemic eases, I expect that number to peak over 5,000. So in 2017 and 2018, when it was published, the town of Westboro hired a consulting firm to do an organizational assessment of the fire department itself. And at my request, they also evaluated the leadership that was here. And they did recommend writing the SAFER grant in 2018 for 8 people, which we did, and we were successful for. And the way that process went is something similar. If you're willing to support it, something similar I'm looking for tonight. So we wrote the grant as they recommended. Once we did receive support from the board via letter, that letter was uploaded into the grant document, and as well as some others from state reps and a senator. And we were successful, and the grant just expired, and now the taxpayers support the funding for those positions. What has happened in the last 10 years is, the last 3 years is a rapid increase in call volume from 3,700, but at the time the grant was awarded, to 4,700 today. I did consult back with the company that wrote this report, and they did concur that writing the grant in this fiscal year for fiscal year 23 would certainly be appropriate based on those numbers. But what they originally wrote in the grant was in fiscal year 24 that we increased our minimum daily staffing to 9 personnel, and they suggested that be done through overtime. And I suggest that will be a problem moving forward, because I have a difficult time filling shifts now. The shifts here, particularly during the week, have become so busy. Sometimes they're doing over 20 calls. Getting people to work overtime is not working. And then it recommended in July of 2025 to actually hire 4 additional firefighter paramedics. That would increase our staffing to that 9-person minimum and really put 11 personnel on duty all the time. This is a copy of the letter that was written by the board, and they recognized the need to increase the staffing in the fire department, and they believe that the SAFER grant provided the ability for the town to plan over the next 3 years and phase in the cost. I would suggest that if any members of the board were present when the study was done and they saw some of the hardships that we endured, such as me leaving our meeting to drive a fire truck to a call because I was the only one left here and the volume was that high, I would tell you that that's rearing its head again today. So what's the goal of the SAFER grant? So the goal of the staffing, what's the goal of the staffing increase? So everything about the first grant we wrote, and I don't expect everybody to know what NFPA 1710 is, but if they want to go research it, they can. And that's a standard that the fire service uses for deployment. And right now we meet that for our engine only, for engine 4, and the ladder truck does not. And you're going to see on the next upcoming slides what our staffing configuration looks like with 10, 9, and 8 personnel on duty. So a second goal is, so the first goal would be to bring the ladder truck closer to 1710 compliance. It will assure that we'll have 2 ambulances in service all the time. Right now we have 1, and if the second one goes out, you'll see what happens with our numbers, depending on our staffing. The ladder truck would close to open the second ambulance. And then if a third call comes in, we would take 2 people off the engine, which would have 4, and then they would have to staff the third ambulance, and that would leave 2 people left on duty in a fire truck. This other goal would be to accommodate our increase in call volume and also to continue to improve our ISO rating. If you remember earlier in the year, I let you know that we jumped from an ISO 4 to an ISO 2, and jumping 2 points in an ISO rating is extremely rare. Actually, I don't know anybody that's done it. It is my goal to bring Westboro to an ISO 1. We are 8 points away, and certainly, being supported to write this grant and achieving the grant or obtaining the grant certainly helps us get closer to that number. So this is what our staffing looks like today with 10 personnel, 9 personnel, and 8 personnel. This is what really we can staff for equipment. And I will tell you that having 10 personnel on duty is a rarity. We usually live at 8, and that's because when you have 45 people working, they're entitled to vacation time and personal time, and often and occasionally they get sick. Particularly in the last 2 years, that's been challenging with COVID-19. So living at 8 is really what we do. And you'll see we put 4 firefighters on the engine, the lieutenant, and 3 firefighters. We try to put the captain and a firefighter on the ladder truck, and 2 firefighters on the first out ambulance. That's with 8. So like I told you in the previous slide, if a second ambulance call comes in, which happens about 1,000 times a year, the ladder truck closes and those 2 people, inclusive of the captain, go on the second ambulance. And when a third call comes in, 2 come off the fire truck and go on the third ambulance. It's really not efficient. What 9 looks like right here, 3 on the fire truck, 2 on the ladder truck, and then 2 on 2 ambulances. That's like our sweet spot today. I really hate dropping below that because moving back and forth between pieces of apparatus and taking your fire gear with you, it's time consuming. It slows down our response times. And really, if the ladder truck's on a call, they have to respond back here to get an ambulance, unless it's a higher priority call, like somebody not breathing. They'll actually go to the call so they can start breathing for a civilian and then wait for a mutual aid truck. So I hate doing this in PowerPoint presentations, but really I just wanted to read this and explain to you what the SAFER program is. And I recognize that it says fiscal year 2021, but unfortunately that's where we're at with the federal government right now. They're behind issuing these SAFER grants, and that's the true period that we're working off of. So the objectives of the SAFER program are to assist local fire departments with staffing and deployment capabilities to respond to emergencies and assure that communities have adequate protection from fire and fire-related hazards. Local fire departments accomplish this by improving staffing and deployment capabilities so they may be more effectively and safely respond to emergencies. With enhanced staffing levels, recipients should experience a reduction in response times, an increase in the number of trained personnel assembled at an incident scene. And that directly reflects back onto NFPA 1710. And that's how many firefighters you can assemble at a structure fire or a major incident in the first 8 minutes. And right now, we only get there to that number by calling mutual aid or automatic aid for building fires. And that's usually Northborough and Southborough. So the benefits of the program, like I told you at the beginning, is this is 100% reimbursement over 3 years of a period of performance. So that means from the day we get a timer that people are hired, that starts our period of performance, and we would not have to pay them salary or benefit. FEMA would. As I told you before, the cost share for us was 25%, 25%, and 65% respectively. This would help us get to that minimum staffing of 9 personnel where we have dedicated people on the ambulance and not flip-flopping all around. Improve safety for our staff and improve the response times and potentially reduce overtime. And when I looked back at the numbers, when I did this presentation, we did reduce our overtime over the three budgetary periods that the safer firefighters were working here. I think budgeted was more than budgeted. The budgeted reduction was more than spent. It wasn't a significant number. It was around a $40,000 savings over the 3 years. So this is what we're proposing, is to go to 11 people on duty. So if we actually had 11, we would have 4 on the engine, 3 on the ladder, and 2 ambulances in service. 10 personnel on duty would be 4 on the engine. We would drop the ladder back down to 2. And then the primary and the second ambulance would each be staffed. And then 9, we would still keep the 2 ambulances in staff with 3 on the engine and 2 on the ladder truck. And that really, working at that minimum is really the number. And that was really like the sweet spot for us, where we can make everything work most efficiently. So what we're seeking tonight is, and I know it's bad timing, and a letter of support to write the grant, that you support me writing the grant. And if we are successful of that, I would then ask that we would put this in front of the legislative body at town meeting and allow for complete transparency. And I would do a similar presentation that I did before, and really let the taxpayers make the decision if this is an investment that they're willing to make. And I would suggest that if we got free labor and free benefits for fiscal year 23, 24, and 25, barring the budgetary issues that we have, not have to fund it until fiscal year 26, I think it's actually appropriate. And I feel like not bringing this before you tonight would be like a disservice and not good for my job.
Okay, thank you very much. I will open the floor for any questions. Ian? Oh, Patrick.
If Ian had his hand up, he's welcome to go first.
Nope, I did not.
I saw his head doing this, and I thought, oh, maybe not.
All right. So, Chief, thank you very much for bringing this forward. I appreciate all of the PowerPoint slides. I know sometimes putting those together can be a little bit painful, and the information is certainly very helpful. I guess a couple of questions, and you kind of answered one of them around your strategy of come before us to get the approval to write the grant and then move forward to ATM. Perhaps you talked about it, but what is your strategy with this in relation to ARPA and your request in ARPA as well? How do you see those two working out? And maybe this is a question for Christie.
So I'm not as smart as the town manager, and I'm certainly not as smart as the town accountant. I don't write the overall budget. I think personally, my opinion is that the safer grant is the way to go, and maybe if there's ARPA money that's unused, use it to phase in 26 and 27. But really, that's their job, and that's outside of my wheelhouse. Christie, I don't know if you want to jump in on that.
I mean, I would just say that, one of the things that we asked, and I know that you haven't all seen all of these forms, but one of the things that we asked department heads and committees that were applying or proposing was, are there alternative funding sources? And so the safer grant does provide that alternative that I think, doesn't deduct from the money that's available for the other proposals that have come in. So I think using an alternative funding source as opposed to using our own ARPA money is preferable. I also think that I'm not sure exactly the timing. I don't know if the chief knows specific timing, but if we look back at the safer grant we had previously, it actually it didn't line up perfectly with our fiscal year. So if that's the case with this one, then in the third year, I would envision that there would be a portion of that year being paid for through the safer grant, and then the following year, just in terms of sort of easing it into the budget incrementally.
Okay. I do have a few other questions, if that's okay, Alan.
Sure, go right ahead.
So Chief, you went around a number of different numbers, and I just want to make sure I understand. Your sweet spot is to have 9 on staff all times of the day. That's kind of like the place you want to be. Did I understand that
At a
correctly?
minimum, no, at a minimum,
At a minimum, okay.
at a
And
minimum.
and today you're in the 8 range. Is that what I?
Yeah, we live around 8 a lot.
Okay. What is your, do you have any data in regards, grants, all great, first couple of years, it's fantastic that this would fund 100% over the first 3 years, but inevitably these end up on the books, right? And I'm just curious, what is the anticipated fully burdened cost of these positions once we get to beyond year 3?
Sure. So I reflected back on the slide that Leah Talbot made for me in 2018, and I could tell you that the conservative number, meaning the higher number, was going to cost the taxpayer for the 8 employees about $100 a year. I don't think it actually costed that much because our the benefits that we anticipated having to pay, as well as the educational stuff that was educational incentives in the firefighter contract, did not come to fruition. That was significantly under what we had anticipated. So I would say it was under 100, and that was for 8 people. Okay. So if I had to guess a ballpark, I would, and I'm not 100% sure, but if I use that slide for this presentation, I would say about $50 annually.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think a safe number per person is about, and Christie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, with benefits, about 100,000 an employee. Yes.
Okay. So I appreciate your sensitivity to obviously the tax issues and the budget that's before us now and our concern there. So thank you for addressing that. With your comment on the ISO goals of getting to ISO 1, and we're about 8 points away, how in your experience so far through that process, how many points do you think we'll gain by doing this? How many of those 8 points will we get, do you think?
By doing this?
Yes.
So I'm going to have to actually tell you, we're going to combine between doing this and what you approved at the last town meeting for the first zoo software to enhance our pre-planning. I think we might be there.
Okay, that's good to hear. Do you see, you'd presented some data in regards to the call volume, seeing your layout of the matrix of how you see these positions being placed and their availability on the different roles within your department, and the call volumes, is the justification, are we seeing an increase in, let's say, fire related calls? Because when I see that matrix of positions, they really speak to 2 things, right? Fire calls and ambulatory services. Is that where the need is when you see that increase of 1,000 over the last couple of years, is that where the call volume actually is?
No, I think that they've both grown because we've always maintained a ratio of about 65% to 35%, 65 being EMS responses and 35% being fire and technical rescue. It's really, it's not just the building fires and the structure fires. We do a lot of bad accidents. We do the jaws of life a lot in this town compared to others, particularly on the limited access highways, which take us out of town and force us into Grafton and Framingham to turn around and get back here. So we're really out of play. I think that the answer is, I think we've seen an increase in both, to be honest.
And then, Chief, just a final question or comment about the MRI study. There were hundreds of, I didn't attempt to count them, but there were many recommendations in that study. Again, only being on the board, not being on the board when that study was originally conducted. Do you, and this is a little bit off topic, but related, do you have a plan around those recommendations? And is that something that the board can expect to see, on a regular basis before us, as how you're burning, or I shouldn't say burning down, that's a project management term, how you're going through that list of checking those off? And because some of those are, I'll say, less costly and certainly potential improvements to the department and the services that you and team offer.
So I don't know if you have the study in front of you or not, but I have had this conversation previous today, which made me go back and start looking. And starting out the recommendations on page 148, which was from day 1, I actually was pretty pleased with the performance of the department, that we have done almost all of them, if you strategically, up till the funding recommendations for next year, to go, what they recommended, to go with the 9 minimum for on overtime. The only one that we really didn't do was get the shift supervisor back into a command vehicle. I just can't do it because of our call volume. My deputy and I, we work out a schedule, so, and I would say that 99% of the time we make sure one of us is around, or at least home, in case some major incident happens. I mean, I went to a call right before I ran into this meeting. So that's kind of been our crutch for now. But just to quickly go through stuff, they first recommended that I become a member of the Economic Development Committee, but after consultation with the town manager, I've established a really great relationship with the EDC, and they felt I didn't need to become a member of it. And my relationship with the business community and the community development director have been exceptional. So, but I think the goal there was met, and that goal was also to get a better relationship with fire prevention.
Yeah. No, I'm not looking, Chief, I just wanted to know if it was something that you bring forward on a regular basis. So you don't need to go through, it's a very lengthy list. So I don't want you to feel you need to go through those now, but it's great that you're looking at those and reassessing again 3 years into that study.
It's my Bible.
So I appreciate that. That's and I'll just say to the rest of the board, you know, I'm glad that the chief is approaching it with the strategy of coming to us just to ask for writing this and then allow the town to vote. But I would just caution those that are, you know, in the community that are watching, that these are the exact type things that are great the first 3 years in, but they do cost the town later on. And this is a long-term cost. We're not going to get rid of these positions, you know, after year 3, 4, 5, 10, right? These will be ongoing on the books probably forever. And this is where our taxes go up. So I just will remind the community of that, and look forward to the process going through annual town meeting. Thank you.
So just a comment on that, with the projects we have coming to, well, some of them are already in work, in play. Pulte, for example, age restricted community. Those are the ones that everybody thinks it's great, and it's like less of an impact to the community. When we build all these developments, 700 units up there, and we're all done with it when it's done, but it's not, it does impact my department. I mean, I can tell you the ratio per unit annually that we're going to be there, and frankly, we're living that right now already on a smaller scale with only having a couple of buildings done. So it's reality, it's data, and it's true data. So whether we do the SAFER grant or not, I'm coming back before you and leaving it hopefully up to the taxpayer to decide what they want to spend on. But at the end of the day, it's public safety, and I have a service to provide. And I also have to take care of my staff to make sure they're not getting driven into the ground, because that's going to create retention issues, and that's costly, as we know also.
Yep. I certainly appreciate all the work you guys do in the department. I think you guys do a fantastic job. So
Thanks.
Don't think otherwise.
I don't.
Can I just want to, just because something Patrick said, Chief, you don't expect that this would come before the annual town meeting, correct? That this would come, right? Okay, so I just want to be clear that if we do move forward, we don't expect to get the award and have this question on the upcoming town meeting warrant, just so that everyone is thinking about timeline.
Okay.
On my best day with my best work, October.
Okay, good to know. Thank you, Chief and Christie, for clarifying that.
So that would put the 3 years of the grant spanning 4 fiscal years. So it would mean that the last year of the grant would go into the 4th year. And so there would be a step increment of the transition of the cost from the grant to the budget. Yes, it still ends up in the budget, but.
Right. And that's what we've experienced with the SAFER grant, because it was a November start date. And I think that's what we would anticipate for this one.
Okay, right. Shelby and then Ian.
Sorry, too many buttons to click off here. Thank you for recognizing me, Alan. Chief, thank you very much for your presentation. Great questions, Patrick. because your questions save me from asking many of mine. So thank you. Chief, one of Patrick's questions led me to think about another, and that's where I thought he was going in terms of how these positions address, you see the call volume in your emergency calls and both for fire as well as EMT or ambulance related. What about the other side of sort of your business, if you will, which is kind of the more administrative fire prevention, permits, inspections, all of that? As this other side of your work increases, are you expecting, I know that's outside of the scope of the 4 firefighters, but are you expecting incrementally more work there as well? We've got a lot of big projects coming into town.
Fire prevention, I'm okay. I do need administrative help in there, and I've been talking about that since the day I became a chief for you. And also on the other administrative part, which is in this study, which I need help on, is a training officer, and there's an EMS officer in there. I could probably consider even merging them together, but like there are a lot of demands put on us. We just sat in the manager's office we're now in OSHA state. So we are now regulated by OSHA. So we have OSHA requirements to satisfy there. We have stuff through the National Fire Protection Agency we have to do for training, our ISO standards that we have to maintain, our Department of Public Health standards for maintaining our licenses for EMTs and paramedics. There's a ton of training that goes into here. And I'm frankly, the deputy and I manage it, mostly him. He manages the majority of it now, but he also has a huge fire prevention role that I'm thankful for him in that role. But the administrative work is becoming a lot. And like managing these grants, just this one alone is time consuming. Not sure if I'm answering your question. Yes.
No, you are. You
Well,
did.
just
So,
to go to add to that, as you all saw in the budget document, the chief did ask for a captain to do some of that training and administrative work that he just talked about, as well as a part-time administrative assistant. And those were 2 requests that were deferred because of the estimated tax increase in fiscal 23.
yeah, thank you for pointing that out, Christie. I know we've all seen it, and I know lots of members of the community have read lots of the budget information. So, Chief, just to reiterate a point, because I think it's really important for the public to understand this. From the 2018 organizational assessment, you and your department have accomplished, fair to say, 90+% of the recommendations.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Ian.
Yeah, thank you. Mine is more kind of comments than questions here, Chief, but thank you for presenting this. And I will say, prior to this, if this was the normal SAFER grant, I think it would be much difficult kind of choice for us here, knowing where we stand on the budget side. And I know you understand that and you led with that, so I appreciate it. Personally, I think this makes a ton of sense for us, or how you presented it. I appreciate Patrick talking about that, just reminding folks that at the end of these grants, just like the last one, those go on the tax rolls and we pay for it. But having basically 100% of this paid for 3 years, or as Alan and Christie said, over 4 partial years, and really going over 4 fiscal years, it really puts us out at a time when hopefully things will look better than they do this time. So I appreciate you looking into it. I think it's an opportunity, as you said, that you'd be remiss if you didn't bring it to us. And I think the process we go through of us just, approving you to go to the grant, but then bringing it back to the town, and the town makes that decision, is the right way to do it. I am fully supportive of supporting you and applying for it. Personally, I'm fully supportive of endorsing it at town meeting as well, but it is the town to make that call, and to be fully transparent, as I know you will be, as you were the last time. So as I said, not really a question for you, but just the comment that I do think it makes sense, really because of the 100% payment for the 3 years. I think it would be, at this point, we know we need it. You've proven that to us. And not taking the opportunity to apply for this grant, I think would be a mistake on our part. So fully supportive, and thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Sean?
Yes, thanks, Alan. Yeah, I support this as well, Chief. I appreciate you coming with this. I think, back in my old AFC days, you talked about your sharp pencil a lot and really trying to do what was right money-wise for the town. And I think you're trying to do that here again, especially just because it's a wonderful opportunity, this grant, that, may not happen again. So no reason to pass this up. There was one thing you mentioned in just talking generally about the strength of your department now. You mentioned that everybody is fire and EMS trained. Is that typical for all sort of towns in our area, that all department members are fire and EMS trained?
Yes, sir.
It is? All right.
Yes, sir.
Again, personally, I found that impressive. I've talked to people in other areas and that wasn't always the case there. So, that's a great benefit to us. I did have, one other question. In the plan, when you look at it following the addition of these 4 individuals, it did talk about, I think in 2026, potentially adding 4 more individuals was part of the recommendation.
I think it was
And
2028.
2028, okay. So what would the call volume have to look like then for potentially you to come forward with that request?
Oh, God. I would say 5,500 to 6,000.
6,000, okay. Okay, but then it would really be, at that point, you would feel strongly that you needed a minimum of 10 on at all times is where,
Yes.
is where it would be. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Chief, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Shelby, final question or two? Comment?
Yeah, thank you. I meant to ask this, so thank you, Alan. Chief, can you just, for our benefit and the public's benefit, speak to the relationship between this request and there's been public conversation around regional management of dispatch and the relationship, or lack thereof, of the two?
Sure. So they're completely independent of each other. So within my department, I have two union shops. I have the firefighters on one, dispatchers on the other. This is completely on the fire side. The regional dispatch thing is a study that's in progress and probably won't even be completed for some time. And if it comes to fruition with the 8 communities that are involved today, it probably wouldn't be for 3 to 5 years from now, but that role is completely different. We used to have in this town where the fire department, firefighters had to dispatch. When I took over as the fire chief, we ran with a minimum of 6 personnel and 1 person was required to dispatch. And the police department ran with their minimum. They had 4 dispatchers, and if somebody called out sick or was on vacation, they took patrol officers off of the road, put them on the desk over there. And I got to be honest with you, firefighters and police officers don't belong dispatching. It's really a skill of its own. And there's been a lot of standards developed to manage those rooms. They have their own academy they go to and their own, annual recertification for Next Gen 911 and Text to 911 and APCO, and it's its own animal. And rather, it's completely separate. If we still operated that way, think of how many people you would be training all those hours every year to recertify as dispatchers.
Well, and I asked the question only to make the point that a regional approach has no impact on the counts that you're talking about in terms of staffing for the services that we're talking about. That is dispatch.
Right.
This is sort of up.
Fire EMS.
Yeah, fire EMS. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Sean,
you.
final question?
I think he just didn't take his hand down.
Oh, no,
Pardon me,
I
pardon
thought
me.
he took it down and went back up. Okay. So
The Zoom file.
Come on, we're gonna have to get on you,
Thank you.
Sean.
the Zoom fail. Put a quarter in the Zoom jar. Okay, so if there are no further questions or comments, I want to thank Chief Purcell for the information, and I will entertain a motion to support Chief Purcell's application for SAFER grant to fund up to 4 additional firefighter positions and to provide a letter of support to be signed by the chair for the grant application process.
So moved.
Second,
So moved and seconded. We'll move to a roll call vote. Ian,
Johnson, yes.
Sean,
EO, yes.
Shelby,
Marshall, yes.
Patrick,
Welch, yes.
and Edinburgh, yes. The motion passes on a vote of 5-0, 5 being present. Thank you again.
Thanks
Chief
very
Purcell.
much for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, so next on the agenda is a presentation from the Westboro Affordable Housing Trust with respect to proposed warrant articles. And so I will introduce Hank Roush, who is Vice Chair of the Westboro Affordable Housing Trust. And Hank, would you like me to run the slides for you? Oop, you're on mute.
Alan, I think I can share my screen.
Okay, go for it.
Is everybody seeing a slide for Westboro Affordable Housing Trust? Very good.
Yes, we are.
Yep.
Okay, I'm representing the Housing Trust. Ed Ben was on your agenda. Ed had a commitment he couldn't get out of, so I filled in for him. We've got a presentation that was jointly drafted by myself and Alan Edinburgh to kind of go over our request for acquiring a piece of property and for funding.
Before you get started, Hank, can you do this as a slideshow?
Oh, sure.
And just move up the slideshow and on the bar at the top.
Up on the top.
Haven't done.
Where it says slideshow, yep.
Yep, haven't done this for a long time.
Oh, say not now.
And just go from beginning, yep, hit slideshow and from beginning.
Alan, you may want to pick it up. I'm not, I think I can unshare maybe.
Okay, I can do that for you. Just tell me when to advance.
Yep. Sorry about that. I haven't done this in quite a while.
No problem. So Hank, I think you have to stop sharing and then Alan can share.
No, I'm all set. Here we go.
Okay.
Okay, can everyone see the slides?
Yep.
Yep. Super. Next slide, please.
We've got to click the right place. There we go.
Okay, the kind of give you an idea of the mission. Again, you know, we've been through the Housing Trust in preparing for town meeting last fall. We went through and we've got a mission statement that basically our job is to provide for the creation and preservation of affordable housing units in Westboro. And we're trying to provide for low and moderate income, affordable housing, and also we do focus on some workforce housing. And again, one of the key objectives is to maintain the housing inventory at a level that keeps us above the 10% for 40B and to be able to deploy funds that are earmarked in the community for affordable housing. Next slide. The select board, by the way, is the appointing authority. We are operating under a set of town bylaws that were approved in November of calendar 2020. And I've got a list here of the trustees: Nancy Armitage, Ed Ben, our chair. Alan is a trustee and our select board representative. Leah McLean, myself, and Kate Storm. Next slide, please. Just kind of a summary of some things we've done. The trust really started to, the trust is almost a year old in terms of the trustees being able to meet. We have created a strategic plan. It's online if you're interested. It talks about initiatives and spending and the kinds of things we'll try to accomplish. We have been running a COVID-19 emergency rental program. We've impacted so far about 16 families. The program is expected to, it hasn't run quite for 12 months yet, but it'll run for 12 months. Spending will be in the neighborhood of $90,000. We have LinkedIn. We've linked in with a number of community elements, but one particular one, we've established a partnership with the Westboro Housing Authority. We're working with them to identify opportunities to both upgrade the existing facilities to make them more friendly and usable by elderly citizens. And we're also working with them, exploring the possibilities of expanding the facilities that exist at Rogers Road, as there's a substantial piece of property over there that we believe could benefit with additional housing on that site. We have been looking at a number of opportunities of vacant land and some abandoned homes and some homes that were on the market. And at this point, we specifically are coming here asking for a transfer of the Baylor Road property, which we'll discuss a little bit later. We have also put in place a set of governing policies for governing our operations and for fiscal management. Again, all that's online. We have fiscal management policies. And we've also established a working relationship with a DHCD agency, a Mass Housing Partnership, which is providing us with resources and support and training. And most of our trustees have been to a couple of seminars with Mass Housing. Next slide, please. This is a summary of our strategic goals laid out by a 3-year time frame. Recruiting trustees, achieving some support. We've been doing some education and outreach when we have the opportunity. We've contacted outside agencies that CPA, CPC to see if we can partner. We've spent a session with the planning department, with the planning committee chair and with the town planner, making sure that we fully understand the master plan that's been laid out for the town. We have been working also with the town engineer, the DPW department, to get an understanding of how wastewater capacity will be reallocated. As you may know, there is a moratorium now on multifamily wastewater permits. So we've got some active programs going on, affordable housing for the Housing Authority on Rogers Road. We've been investigating the opportunities. We'll be talking tonight under a transferring tax taken properties, the Baylor Road property. We're looking at the opportunities for infills and conversions. And in the next year, in fiscal 24, we'll be looking at trying to put in place a workforce housing first-time buyer program in collaboration with the state. We are empowered to be a monitoring agent for preservation of affordable housing units. And we currently are in conversations through the Board of Selectmen and with a possible conversion opportunity. Next slide. Okay, transferring property to Affordable Housing Trust. There is a piece of property at number 3 Baylor Avenue. I got the details on there. It's about 1,000 or 1,100 square foot single family ranch style home on 0.2 acres. It was taken for tax title. The owner passed away in either 2014 or 2015, and the taxes haven't been paid since that time. We've gone through land court, and the town now has possession of the property by way of a land court. We would expect to compensate the town $48,000, which is approximately the value of the tax lien at the time of transfer. Again, the property was taken for tax title. We would propose to renovate or replace the existing structure, and we would do it in a way so that we would meet the DHCD criteria to include it in the subsidized housing inventory, which is the 40B 10% kind of number. We would probably do that by partnering with a nonprofit developer. it's going to take, if we're able to acquire the property at Springtown meeting, it'll take about a little more than a year to go through the permitting process and the renovation or rebuild process. Next slide, please. We've kind of roughed out a rough budget. We're saying 50,000 acquisition expense. That's making an agreement with the town for pay in lieu of. There's a renovation expense, assuming we renovate. There's some personal property on a site that we would dispose of. And then we would sell the property as an affordable house at the expected selling price about 40% of market. Selling the property would then yield back to the trust a positive cash flow, and we'd have a net project cost of $25,000. Next slide, please. On Rogers Road, again, we've been talking with the Housing Authority, and what the Housing Trust's role with the Housing Authority would be is that we would provide advocacy and support and eventually funding for the Housing Trust, for the Housing Authority. We would provide them with a subsidy funding to help them go through the process of finding a developer and developing and expanding the property. There would be a lot of upfront expense, and eventually when the property was developed and sold, there would be a mortgage, and we would get cash flow from the repayment of the mortgage. And that's a very substantial net project cost, because we're looking at a very substantial build, something approximating the size of the existing property over on Rogers Road. Next slide,
I
please.
just had a comment. We developed these numbers by looking at some other projects in the state where, studio, 2-bedroom mix for 62 plus senior affordable housing units. A typical rate of subsidy runs about $30,000 per unit.
Right.
And that fills the gap between what the developer needs to spend versus what they'll get in revenue to make the project financially viable. And that would ensure these units stay affordable in perpetuity.
And again, you can see on the top of the slide, the expectation that the Housing Authority project would be age restricted to age 62 plus. Next slide, please.
Okay, you see it?
Yep, no, I don't. Yeah, sorry.
Hold on.
There we go.
Okay, first time home buyer pilot.
Yeah, first time, the Mass Housing Partnership has a so-called One Mortgage program, which is a program for providing subsidies for low interest or no interest mortgages to first-time home buyers. This tends to be a program that's really, really effective in supporting so-called workforce housing. Typical of affordable housing is no more than 80% of AMI. Workforce housing allows you to go up to 120% of AMI. But we would, in Westboro, being able to help folks who are currently renters become owners. But this is a kind of a program that would help that. And we would have to provide some subsidies to that. And over a period of time, a number of mortgages, we would look to invest $165,000 net. Next slide, please.
And just to clarify, this would be for moderate income families who are currently renting in Westboro, but also available to town employees. So that, firefighters, police officers, teachers, DPW workers. The goal of this program is to help moderate income families get into market rate housing. And the grants can assist with down payment or can be used to pay points off the one mortgage to lower the monthly cost to make properties, more affordable for the households.
So there's kind of a summary of all, again, given the strategic objective we've laid out and the projects we're able to identify over the next couple of years, we'll be looking at a spending level that would consume far more than our existing affordable initial funding. Again, when the trust was formed, an amount of $642,857 was transferred from the so-called Pulte Affordable Housing Fund over into the trust. Most of that money is still there. We've had some expenses, but we'd be looking to ask a requested funding of $1.2 million that would then allow us to have the flexibility to go ahead and proceed with these projects over the next couple of years, and be able to move judiciously and expeditiously in working with third-party developer partners to have them execute the work. You need to have the cash on hand without having to go through a town meeting approval process. Now, again, I mentioned earlier that the trust has financial policies, and we're operating under town bylaws. Within the town bylaws, there are situations where spending beyond certain levels, basically spending more than 50% of our available assets, require a concurrence vote from the Board of Selectmen. So any really large projects, we would be after we get the funding by way of the town meeting on any large projects, before we make a commitment, we would be back to the Board of Selectmen for a concurrence vote. So there's some oversight. Next slide, please. So again, the first article, we're looking for transfer of funds, the 1.28714 from the Stabilization Del Webb Chauncey Lake Fund. I believe that's the amount, that's approximately the amount that was certified as being in the fund available for transfer at this time. This fund was established Article 22, FY 2020. We've had been funded in the past. Our spending is regulated by our bylaws. I just wanted to make sure folks understand that any financial transactions, anything that the Housing Trust does, though the trustees have a lot of flexibility, all the financial transactions are routed through the town finance director, and all transactions that we engage in have to follow Mass General laws and have to follow town policies and are subject to oversight by way of being part of the town bylaws. Next slide. I think that, okay, summary, yeah. Okay, we believe the projects that we're identifying support the goals and mission of the trust. They're in line with the master plan. It's a strategic plan. We're requesting funds from the Stabilization Fund. There's, again, it's the amount of money that's in the Stabilization Fund. We're looking at far more funding being available in future years as the Pulte buildings build out, and it will have no impact on the tax levy, property taxes, or the tax budget. It enables the trust to move forward and execute their plan, gives us the flexibility to deal with third parties and to make commitments without having to continually go through a long-term cycle of seeking approval at town meeting. And it provides with sufficient capitalization to be flexible and move ahead. I guess I'd be ready to entertain questions or comments.
Okay, thank you very much, Hank. Ian.
Yeah, just for my benefit, and I should remember this, but maybe it's for folks watching as well. Can we just an update on the stabilization fund? So it sounds like that money's in there 2 and 3. That was set aside, I believe, for affordable housing. Is that correct?
Yeah, the town meeting article specifically said the money in the stabilization fund was to be appropriated by town meeting for affordable housing or for programs that support seniors. And basically the trust initiatives will do both, in that the project that we're expecting to conduct with the housing authority is definitely both affordable housing and supporting seniors. And the Baylor Road project is one that is supporting affordable housing. So it's all in line with the requirements of the warrant article.
And just to follow up on that, the third one for the moderate income housing, that would still, in your view, qualify under the affordable housing?
Yes, it's still,
mandate, is
it's,
that-
right, it's supporting affordable housing for our community, in our community.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? Shelby? No? Okay, Patrick.
Yeah, first, I'll drop my hand so I don't forget that.
I'll keep calling on you.
Yeah. Thank you for presenting this. I really appreciate you filling in and doing this, and you provided a lot of information that a lot of clarification. So thank you. I guess a couple of questions. The first question I have, I think, is really to Christie. Christie, is this a separate stabilization fund than the stabilization fund that we refer to when we talk about in our fiscal policy around free cash and stabilization fund? Is this a special stabilization fund specifically to the Del Webb for this use?
Yeah, so that's completely separate. We also at the same time meeting, we set up 2 stabilization funds to receive money that we anticipated coming in. So one is the Del Webb Chauncey, which they're talking about, was set up to receive the payments that had been negotiated with Pulte. And that was for, as Hank described, affordable housing and senior programs. And then we have an additional stabilization fund, which receives mitigation money. So you will actually see, not to get too off topic, but you'll actually see an article on the town meeting warrant requesting money from that for a different, completely separate DPW project. So 3 separate that we're talking about.
Okay, and then just one follow-up question. So in the slides that you were presented, Hank, you had, I think there was an acquisition cost of $50K for the 8 Baylor Ave. We already acquired that, right? Or is that an additional cost? I'm sorry.
The town has acquired the property, but the town has not been able to collect the taxes that are due on the property. So that by way of a land court action, the town was able to basically take control of the property, but the taxes aren't paid. Go ahead, Alan.
If I may, it's not uncommon for towns to transfer tax title taken properties to housing trusts without getting the reimbursement for the lien. And towns can do that. Our view as a trust is, with the funds available, that it's appropriate for us, and looking at the finances of the project, it's appropriate and affordable for the trust to be able to make the town whole.
Okay,
right.
Thank you.
And not
Also,
and
just
effectively it pulls $48,000 worth of uncollected taxes
Yep.
off the burden of the taxpayers.
Yep, makes sense. I appreciate that.
so typically we would redeem that through, but prior to this, we didn't have an affordable housing trust. And so the treasurer collector, as custodian of the property, would coordinate an auction of the property, and we would receive funds that way.
Thank you.
Ron, question?
Thank you, Alan. Here, 1 second. Yes, I just really want to say thank you to all the hard work the trust has done. Thank you, Hank and Alan and Ed and all the other members of the committee. I think really sort of coming out of the gate and taking a big swing to try and add 40 units is quite impressive. At a cost of what, 30,000 a unit roughly estimated for the project is very impressive, and I am fully supportive of this. Thank you, the whole committee.
Thank you. Ian, just a second. I'm also note that at this Thursday's meeting, we're actually finalizing a grant application. Mass Housing Partnership offers technical assistance grants. As you can imagine, these are the first projects our trust is doing, and there's a pretty steep learning curve. And so we're applying for grant from Mass Housing Partnership that would provide engineering, legal, and administrative technical assistance for us to go through one or both of the housing projects. and help accelerate our learning curve and provide that kind of support as well, so that we're up and running and efficient and effective as possible. Ian.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. I think the question I had came from what Christie said. So I think, and again, just so we put it out there for the town, and I'm sure it would come up in town meeting as well. So our typical process with these properties would be that the town would put them up for auction. It sounds like the property itself has considerable work needed to it, but it probably would sell for more, knowing it's Westboro, would sell for more than the 48,000 in back taxes. So we'd collect the back taxes plus additional revenues. So I know that's going to be asked, but we also know the priority that we've put on affordable housing. I think this is a great opportunity for it. So I appreciate you bringing it forward. I just want, we should be prepared for it. Folks may ask that about, why not offset taxes and other stuff, because we could sell it, for more money and put it against tax increases, et cetera. But I think the process you have and looking at the financials of it and paying off that back taxes is I think appropriate in this instance, even though you don't have to do that. But I do appreciate you bringing it forward in that manner, because I do think that will help move that through town meeting as well. So thank you.
Shelby?
Yes, so a comment and a question. So just on the Del Webb, correct me if I'm wrong, Christie, but we anticipate a total of 9 million to come into that account. So this would be 1.285, well, plus the 600 and something that was initially allocated. So a 9 million, subtracting both of those numbers, correct?
Right.
Okay. So again, want to thank Hank for a great presentation and the trust for all of its work. Fully supportive of this request. It may have been mentioned, and I just missed it, but the Westboro Housing Authority and its board are supportive of this second action by the trust.
Yes, we Shelby, we've been working very closely with the executive director and with a couple of members of the Housing Authority board. And in fact, we're in the queue to get on the Housing Authority's agenda to attend a board meeting either this month or next month to kind of just talk some more directly with the board about what we're doing. But yeah, we're totally linked in. The board's totally supportive.
Great, thank you.
And the Westboro Housing Authority did obtain a grant from Mass Housing Partnership to do a complete engineering study of the property, which will look at, how much development it could support. What types of units, how many units, the water sewer issues, road access, all, wetlands, the whole 9 yards, which will really help bound the project and help us move forward. Patrick.
Yeah, this question's for Christie. Thank you, Alan. I should probably know this, but 8 Baylor Ave as an affordable housing unit, when the property owner moves into that in the future someday, is that property taxed like other properties, or is it as an affordable unit, is it taxed differently?
No, it's taxed the same, 3 Baylor.
Excuse me, 3 Baylor, sorry, yes.
The
Don't
same.
want to buy the wrong house. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? There's no action to take at this time. So I just want to
Actually, I do have a question. So to Ian and Patrick's kind of questions, the once this is sold, the 3 Baylor I'm referring to, is the valuation of the home different because it's an affordable property?
Yeah, yes, it is, Shelby. The part of making the property eligible for inclusion in the subsidized housing inventory means that we will put what is called a deed rider. The deed of the property will actually put a variety of restrictions on the resale and on the resale value. And because you put restrictions on the resale value, that impacts Jonathan's ability to set the assessed value of the property.
Thank you. So Ian, in some ways, even though there could be an argument for resale at full market value, I realize this one house won't temper the increases we've seen, but there's sort of a pro argument there, if you will, or case to be made for not only does this meet the Affordable Housing Trust, but it also sort of brings the goals of the, our affordable housing commitment, but it also addresses the huge spike we've seen in market rate pricing here in Westboro.
Yep.
John, is that a question or have you left your hand up?
Yes, well, just and more of a comment. I think you guys have mentioned the Westboro Housing Authority a couple of times. We have an election coming up in March. I believe there is an open seat on the Westboro Housing Authority that no one currently has pulled papers on. And certainly it looks like, I imagine they are going to have some work ahead of them as well. Just a shout out for anybody who's interested in affordable housing issues within the town of Westboro. There's a real opportunity for you to get involved.
I will personally go around and help gather signatures, or if need be, help someone run a writing campaign to that stopped. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Hank, for joining us here this evening. We appreciate you taking the time and bringing this forward.
Yep. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thanks, Hank.
Thanks, Hank.
Okay, so next on the agenda, if I've marked everything off correctly, is a request to approve meeting minutes from November 23rd and December 14th, 2021.
I'll move the approval of the minutes from November 23rd and December 14th as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions, comments, corrections, quotes? Seeing, hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote. Shelby?
Marshall, yes.
Sean?
Teo, yes.
Patrick?
Welch, yes.
Ian?
Johnson, yes.
And Edinburgh, yes. The motion passes 5-0, 5 being present. That concludes all of the items on our agenda. So we will move on to issues and correspondence.
Don't we have December 14 meeting minutes?
We voted, my motion was for both.
I'm sorry.
3rd and December 14th.
Sorry.
I put them together.
Yeah.
I still support my vote then. Sorry, I missed that. I missed that in the motion.
My copy of the agenda has the 21st minutes on it, but they're not in the packet, so we'll handle that at our next meeting.
Correct.
Okay, so issues and correspondence. Patrick, why don't you start off?
I guess just off the cuff here, I'll just remind the community and that the budgets are out, and there's some pretty significant increases that are anticipated. I encourage the community to take a look at those budgets, digest them as best as possible. I think the board, certainly myself, would encourage folks to ask questions, help us with the creativity in regards to how we can provide the services that are needed for the town, but also to reduce the costs in a way that makes sense. Let's see, I also will just mention the senior center has made some adjustments to their calendar for the year due to due to COVID. So please, if you're planning on attending any events at the senior center, you should call down there first and just make sure you understand any changes to that schedule. And then just one other item I'll bring up for future discussion. I've been talking with Christie about a particular topic that is a little bit near and dear to my heart, and I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the board. It's kind of a minor topic, but something perhaps we could discuss in the future. A number of, probably actually going on 2 or 3 months ago now, for those that aren't aware, I regularly babysit my granddaughter and on Friday mornings, and And before the weather got too cold, I was trying to take her down to Chauncey Beach to go down to the swing sets down there and enjoy, that area. Unfortunately, we lock the gates on Chauncey Beach, and we can't use that facility, that swing set for during the majority of the year. Granted, some of that is in the cold weather. A number of residents in my little neighborhood in this area of town, that's kind of the only accessible playground for kids in this area of town. So just something to consider in the future. I know Christie has done a little bit of work in regards to kind of the insurance piece of it. And if the board so desires, I would love to have it as a conversation in the future as to how we could be creative, as to how we could provide access to that playground for more of the year. So I'll just leave it at that. And that's all I can think of. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Shelby.
Give me a minute to get to my notes. Yeah, so a couple comments. First of all, Ellen, I want to thank you and Christie and all those involved behind the scenes on the completion of the community handbook, which obviously the board approved, and its dissemination. So, and it's great to hear that we're getting some questions. That means folks are actually reading it. I would ask that we sort of keep a pulse on how many questions are coming in, and if it, I don't have a threshold, but we may want to have a Q&A session with committee chairs, vice chairs, or obviously make it open to the public so that those questions can be addressed kind of in an more open forum. Because if one person is asking them, it's probably relevant to another. So I would just ask that we keep an eye on that. As the boards represent the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, I'll just let folks know here, and certainly let the public know, that there is an opening for that committee. That is a position that is appointed by our town manager, Christie Williams. If you have interest, please contact the town manager's office. There's an announcement that has been posted, and prospective members are encouraged to watch our meetings. They are our friends at Westboro TV tape all of those, so you have a good chance to kind of see what the work of that committee is, and strongly encourage folks that have an interest in this space to raise their hand and share their interest and kind of why. Finally, I would just say that I appreciate the sensitivity and the difficult decision-making to have this meeting remote. Admittedly, I do like to see everyone's face without a mask on, including my own. Well, I don't like to see my own face, but I like to see all your faces, and I like to not have a mask on. Alan, through you as the chair, working with Christie, and then certainly out of respect to the Board of Health, I think we should just keep our thoughts open about our meetings going forward. The kids are in school, the teachers are in school. We're asking restaurants to keep us fed and serve and drive our economy, and folks are working, and so it's a bit of a double-edged sword, if you will, that we sit here sort of to sort of maybe help minimize maybe folks that feel compelled to come to town hall if we're meeting in person. I certainly understand that. I also understand logistically hosting a kind of a hybrid meeting has some technical challenges, but I would just ask that as a board, I know we are open to meeting in person, very much open, and we want to do that respectfully and keep everyone healthy. So, and I want to that end, I want to thank everyone that continues to get out there and do their work under incredibly stressful and conditions that just seem to not go away. So I am grateful for town staff and private sector staff, and that continue to keep the wheels of the world moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Dawn.
Yes, thanks, Alan. So the Library Building Committee met on December 28th. So we had 12 proposals for owners, project managers, and we brought that number down to 3 that we requested to come in and meet with us. So on this Thursday, the 13th, we have PMA and Vertex coming in, well, not coming in, it's all going to be virtual, presenting to us. And then on the 18th, CMS is coming to present to us. And then following that presentation on the 18th, the group will select a candidate or one OPM for this project. On the 20th, the Library Building Committee is getting together again to meet with the architects for the project, that is Lamoureux and Pagano. So that meeting's on the 20th of January. And then at our typical meeting time, which would be the 25th, the MBLC representative is coming in. That's Andrea Bunker. Her coworker may also join as well. They're going to be sort of reviewing the process, and we're going to have questions for them on, potential changes we could make and things of that nature. The library director and the other members of the committee have asked me to offer the opportunity for the select board to come to that meeting if they would like to talk to the MBLC about potential changes. There are 14 towns on the wait list. We're number 1 and there's 13 behind us. We're also, the library director, Maureen, is going to send out an invitation to those other towns to zoom into this call if they have questions about their specific projects. Maybe they have things that we haven't considered yet in questions. So that is scheduled for the 25th at 3:30. And certainly, again, I extend that invitation to the select board as well. If they're interested to talk about that. There's a lot going on. And then following that, hopefully we will then have an OPM and an architect, and we will be getting together in February to try and move forward on getting some hard estimates on updated costs for this project, so decisions can be made. I don't know if anybody has any questions on my correspondence there. I guess I'd be willing to take them at this time. And then just the other thing I wanted to mention was this Monday is Martin Luther King Day, and Westboro Connects, along with the high school, sponsors an event. It is mostly virtual this year, but you can go to westboroconnects.org and register for that event, 4th annual, and well worthwhile. So I just want to mention that as well. Alan, thank you very much.
Thank you. Ian.
I mean, 3 quick things. One is the rep to the rec commission. Just a reminder for folks that memberships for the golf club are open now, and for existing members, if they renew by the end of January, they pay 2021 rates versus the new 2022 rates. So do encourage existing members to sign up. They've all got notices, but multiple ways to do that, whether it's stopping by the golf club where the pro is there most days, but also you can do it online through the web payment, but also mail a check into the town office. So encourage people to do that. Second, I would ask if the board is supportive to ask through Christie just to pass along our wishes to the police chief, to the officer that was in the accident the other day. And it sounds like minor injuries, but also in that I understand was able to get out and aid the other victims of the accident, but just to pass along our best wishes and hopefully a speedy recovery there. And then final, we all know that it's freezing outside. We're in winter. I just ask that we do what we always do in Westboro, which is look out for your neighbors. especially now with cold, just to make sure, especially if there's elderly neighbors, to make sure that everyone is safe and see if they need any help and go that extra mile, as well as with our first snowstorm, is if you see, folks in need, let's reach out and help each other to make sure we can clear paths, make things safe, et cetera. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For myself, 2 quick comments. As we had on the agenda, past couple of meetings, the select board continues to be supportive of the Mass General Brigham Integrative Care Facility proposed for Westboro. I've been contacted by a number of residents who are supportive of it as well and want to know if there's anything they can do to help. So if, and there's someone willing to help organize that effort among citizens. So if someone's interested, let me know. I'll put you in touch with that resident. That's not any activity that would be sponsored or guided by the board or myself in any way. It's just helping connect residents together who are interested in sharing their support. And finally, the Appalachian Service Project on Saturday, January 29th, we'll be doing a collection and fundraiser for the Westboro Food Pantry. So put that on, put a save the date on your calendar. There'll be more information to follow. Okay, and with that, as we do not have an executive need for the executive session as originally planned and on the agenda, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any objections? No. Okay.
Yes.
Roll call vote. Ian,
Johnson, yes.
Patrick,
Welch, yes.
Shelby,
Marshall, yes.
Dawn,
Theo, yes.
and Edinburgh, yes. I vote a 5-0. We are adjourned, and thank you to Westboro TV for the excellent support and coverage for this and all of our meetings.
Great to see you
Have
all.
a good night. And
Thanks. Good night.
Stay
Stay
warm,
safe.
stay safe. Yep.